STEM fans, are you ready? Let's hear it for the world-class NASA STEM Stars team. From NASA centers across the country, we present Ansley Browns.
Hello, and welcome to the 13th edition of NASA STEM Stars webinar. My name is Lynn Dotson. I'm an education specialist at Kennedy Space Center. And joining us today is Ansley Browns. She is from Johnson Space Center, and she's an ISS Payload Facility Integrator. We're coming to you live from remote locations around the country, and NASA STEM Stars allows you guys, you students, to connect with scientists, engineers, innovators from around NASA to learn about different career paths, opportunities, and missions. Definitely need to check out #NextGenSTEM. So today's mission, if you're ready for it, you are going to meet the team, which is Ansley. You're going to explore her STEM career, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. We're going to ask your questions. So as we're going through this, please put your questions in the chat box, and we will be trying to answer some of them along the way. And then you're going to learn about your particular mission. And finally, what's next on the NASA STEM Stars next week? So we're so happy you're here, and be sure to stick around because we are answering questions, and Ansley will be answering your questions. And I even heard that she's going to be talking to us a little bit about how do you spot the space station that's only 250 miles above us at night, so around your place. So it's a very cool opportunity, and she'll teach you all about that. So it is now my pleasure to introduce Ansley Browns. Thank you so much for being here, Ansley. And why don't you start off with telling us a little bit about yourself and your interests?
Thanks, Lynn. I'm super excited to be with you guys today. So like you mentioned, I work at the Johnson Space Center, which is located in Houston, Texas. I came to Houston to work for NASA, and I ended up meeting my husband here too. And my husband and I like to travel. We've got a picture here showing us in London last fall. We went to see the Houston Texans play football in London and spent the week. Like I said, we love to travel around. I also enjoy cooking and baking, and I've got a picture here from something I baked at Christmas. Again, we're a NASA family, so NASA's highlighted a lot. Another cool thing I like to do at work is give tours of mission control. So I used to work in mission control, and when we have visiting tour groups, sometimes we give them tours. I'm also a big theater fan. I did musical theater when I was in school, and that interest has carried on. And so I got to see the musical Hamilton when it came here a couple of years ago, and was able to actually merge my love of theater and space, because the Hamilton cast came to Mission Control and did a tour after the show, and it was incredible to get to show those guys around and meet some of the cast members. I was super giddy about that. And I'm also a big sci-fi fan. I love Star Wars, Star Trek, and even though we're working from home these days, but I still had to have fun on Star Wars Day, May the 4th, with my Princess Leia wig to enjoy on my video chats those days.
Wow, like just hearing your story is like, wow, we're basically the same person. We have a lot of the same interests. So it's been so cool getting to know you and just see that you are just a regular, awesome person like all of us out here. And I love Star Wars too. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to ask you a little bit about why and how you got where you are today. So we'll go to the next slide, and you're going to talk about your path of why you're here and how you got there.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Tallahassee, Florida, born and raised. And when I was in second grade in elementary school in Tallahassee, I had to do a book report on a famous American, and I picked Neil Armstrong. And that's really the first time I ever heard anything about space or human space flight, and I was just fascinated by Neil Armstrong. And so I did my book report and dressed up like Neil And that was kind of my interest. I heard about space camp shortly thereafter, and I couldn't find anyone in elementary school who wanted to go to space camp with me. So finally, when I got to middle school, I decided I was going to go by myself. And space camp was incredible for me because I learned there were other kids out there that were interested in science and math and space, just like me. And I went to space camp for a couple of summers when I was in school, graduated from high school, and I chose to go to Birmingham Southern College, which is a small liberal arts school in Birmingham, Alabama. It's a little different than other folks that work at NASA, but like I mentioned earlier, I was interested in music and theater and several other activities. So I decided to go to a liberal arts school and pursue all of those. And while I was there, I had to do a research project my senior year, and I chose to research the history of the astronaut program because that was something I had always been interested in. And as a part of that, I came to Houston and interviewed some folks here at Johnson Space Center. That was my first trip to Texas, my first trip to JSC. And I met some people and mentioned that I was graduating that year, and I was able to make some connections. And they suggested I send in my resume, which I did before the era of online job applications. And I got a phone call that someone in the IT department was interested in hiring me. So I interviewed with the IT department here at the Johnson Space Center and started work on July 30th, 2001. So I've been here almost 19 years.
That's
and
great.
That was really my foot in the door. I really wanted to work in mission control, but I had this opportunity to come into the IT department, and that turned out to be fortuitous, a good thing for lots of reasons. That's where I met my husband.
Very cool. So one of the questions has come in already. Actually, since you were talking about mission control, were you ever part of the Apollo or shuttle program?
So Apollo was before my time, but I did support some of the space shuttle missions in terms of developing the space station. We used the space shuttle to build the space station, and I supported mission control in the space station mission control, including some of our space shuttle flights.
Very cool. So if we have another slide, I think the slides might be stuck, might be stuck, but it's okay. We're going to keep going through this. So you talked a little bit about your path, your career path, how you got where you got. Eventually we'll get those slides up and running again. But can you tell us a little bit about what does an actual ISS payload facility integrator do at NASA?
Absolutely. So payloads are the same things as experiments that we do on the space station. So scientists around the world have sent experiments to space station to test out things in microgravity. And payload facilities are basically experiment facilities, so where the astronauts can perform different research experiments of all types. So my job as a payload facility integrator is basically to make sure those facilities are in good working order so that when the scientists send their experiments to space, the astronauts can do their jobs. We have several different payload facilities, like I mentioned, lots of different types of research that we do on space station, including glove boxes. So if some of the students might have some laboratories at their schools, when they're using that different equipment, that's what we make sure is working well. So I get to talk with people all over the country, which is really neat. I work with technical experts on the different hardware that are located at other NASA centers around the country. I work with budget specialists to make sure we have the right funding that we need to make sure our facilities are working well, and making sure that we have the right supplies and consumables that support those facilities. So we get to work with folks that are launching spacecraft to the space station as we make sure that the resupply is there. So it's really fun to work all around. The thing I like the most about being a payload facility integrator is working with people around NASA that are all supporting the scientific research on this totally cool and completely peaceful endeavor with folks around the world. I've been in that job for about a year, but I started off, like I mentioned, with the IT department. I did eventually get to work in mission control as a TOPO, that's Trajectory Operations and Planning Officer. Lots of acronyms at NASA. TOPO is responsible for the ISS orbit. So where the space station is in orbit, its trajectory, making sure it's in the right place when different visiting vehicles launch. And so we end up coordinating a lot with folks around the world. An interesting tidbit on space station, the engines are actually located on the Russian segment of the space station. So TOPO works a lot with Russian trajectory specialist. And when I was in Topo, I had the opportunity to actually travel to Russia and meet our trajectory specialists in Moscow, which was super cool. And I got to see lots of areas around Moscow. I also was able to travel to Japan and go to the space center that's outside of Tokyo and work with some of the trajectory specialists in Japan that fly the H2 transfer vehicle. That's the Japanese spaceship that takes cargo to the space station. After about 10 years in mission control, I changed jobs and went over to work in the astronaut office, which was an incredible experience, working alongside and supporting the astronauts that fly to the space station. And one of my jobs when I was in the astronaut office was, again, working with visiting vehicles and representing the astronauts' perspective in our visiting vehicle missions. Some of our visiting vehicles are captured by the space station's robotic arm, which is a really cool and amazing process. And as a result of that, I got to travel to Canada and learn how to fly the space station robotic arm so that I could accurately represent the astronauts, which was, again, it was incredible to get to travel. So I have traveled a lot with the International Space Station program and different jobs that I've had. I've also had the opportunity to work on some of our future developmental missions. NASA's doing a whole lot, and it's really an exciting thing to be a part of several different aspects of human spaceflight over my career.
Very cool. So you've done a lot of traveling. That's pretty obvious. And did you have to learn some languages when you were traveling to all these places like Japan and Russia? Did you learn a little bit of the language?
So I did learn a little bit of Russian. We had the opportunity to take some Russian language classes since we interacted with our Russian counterparts a lot. And I wouldn't say I was fluent. I was probably conversational enough to get around when I traveled to Moscow. When I went to Tokyo, I did not learn much Japanese, but luckily our colleagues there speak pretty good English too. So when we work with our international colleagues, that's definitely one of the challenges, is learning to communicate. But math is the same in any language. So as a trajectory expert, when I was working in mission control, we all would do our numbers, and they all thankfully added up in the right direction.
Cool. Well, we have some more questions. So they asked, does NASA have any missions to Mars in 2026?
So that's a good question. I actually don't know the answer to that. I know we have our Mars 2020 mission coming up really soon, next week.
So excited about that.
Yes, we're launching a new unmanned cargo ship to Mars, but I don't work with the Mars program, so I'm not familiar about 2026.
Well, we're hoping we'll be on Mars by 2030. That's maybe the goal. That's the latest I've heard. So another question, can you give an example of a challenge or a problem you've solved related to supplies and materials on the ISS? And kind of on top of that, what skills did you use to manage this challenge? That's a great question.
That is a great question. So the cool thing about being in mission control and really working across the International Space Station program is teamwork. So maybe answering the second question first, a lot of challenges that we face on the space station, we work together as a team. And we all have unique backgrounds and experiences that we pull together to try to solve problems and provide answers to challenges. So certainly I would say one challenge that comes to mind is when I was a trajectory operations officer, TOPO. We managed the space station's trajectory, like I mentioned, and trying to navigate that, the space station be in the right place at the right time for several different missions that come up. When we were building space station and launching shuttles, we would have several different shuttle missions in a year, plus our Russian missions, plus some of the other cargo ships coming up, and navigating all of those different requirements to make sure space station was in the right place for all of those launches certainly can be a challenge. And again, teamwork, talking to each other, asking questions. We're able to work together to solve those problems and make sure the space station's in the right place to meet all of those needs.
Yeah, so that absolutely, as a teacher, I know that's a big thing we are always pushing out in the classroom. Teamwork. It makes the dream work. I know it sounds cheesy, but it's number one. If you can work with people, you can solve problems. So absolutely. So we have a video we have Peggy working on something that you used to manage. I guess it's the MSG. And so we're going to show that video, but can you explain what the MSG is?
Certainly. MSG stands for Microgravity Science Glovebox. That's one of the laboratory facilities that's on the International Space Station, where when we have experiments that we need to keep contained in a certain area, we'll do those inside the MSG. And it looks like my dog came to join us.
I love it. I love it.
So Peggy Whitson is she was the commander of the space station twice, actually. She holds the record for the astronaut with the most time, the U.S. astronaut with the most time in space. And in this video, she's going to do a speedy time, quick overview of the Microgravity Science Glovebox and how it's used on the space station.
All right, and I think after we're done, that it is a quick video, you guys. So just be ready, and it's going to sound like it's a little. Don't adjust your mics or anything. It's just supposed to be fast. So we'll put in a actual in the chat. We'll put in how you can go to see more of those videos with Johnson Space Center. So we'll roll the clip. Yep.
Today, we wanted to talk to you about Microgravity Science's Glovebox. We do all kinds of experiments in here. I've grown tissue culture cells. I've looked at how air and fluids separate. I've grown superconductor crystals in here, and they got up to over 700 degrees Fahrenheit. So this environment was to protect us from what was happening inside the experiment. Now I'm growing cells, and they have to be grown in a sterile environment. So now I'm protecting the cells from me by having them inside this environment. So it's very flexible, and we can change out all the experiments by opening up this big door on the front. Then once we've got the experiment set up inside, you can access from the sides, or we have this little airlock down here that if you wanted to, you could access from here as well. It's kind of like a transformer. At the end of the day, when you're done working with it, you just push it into the rack. There we go. It fits right in very nicely within the rack volume. The other thing that goes along with this, or is attached to this, is a microscope. We have a fantastic microscope with capability to send the videos and pictures down to the ground. Down to the ground, and looking at the structures that are forming differently here in zero gravity. That's why they're doing the research here, to see what new they can discover. So very cool science, very cool piece of hardware. Microgravity Science's Glovebox.
Yeah, so she was quick, but
Yes.
that was some really cool information. That's so neat that you used to work with that actual box. So another question rolled in. They're coming in like crazy. What is the most challenging part of your job?
That's a really good question. So I would say one of the challenging things about my job is working with people, again, that in all over the country. And we're doing a lot of that, more of that now as you and I are working from home. But a lot of the people that I work with are not located in Houston. We have technicians and engineers at the Marshall Space Flight Center in Alabama that are the technical experts on the MSG that we just saw, the LSG. We also have some facilities on the space station that are run out of the Glenn Research Center up in Ohio. And so I get to work with folks at both those locations, which is really great fun and exciting to work with, but it can be a challenge when we're navigating all the things we're doing, locally, as well as coordinating with each other.
Very cool. So another question, we have a little bit more time here. We're doing really good with time. What is life like in general at Johnson Space Center with NASA? Kind of explain, what is it like to work at NASA?
So I would say it's fun. It's really fun. At Johnson Space Center, and certainly across NASA, we work hard, but we play hard too. And it's been great over my time at NASA to get to know other people, again, with similar interests. And I think I've worked with some of the most incredible people in my career across the different areas I've supported space station. But again, there's this picture of me at the Glenn Research Center, so I've gotten to travel, which is really fun. When the movie The Martian came out, we had a special Mars week, getting excited about the activities that we have going on for Mars. And I was able to attend a special premiere of that, and that was pretty exciting to watch that movie with a whole bunch of other space fans.
Matt Damon? Was Matt Damon there?
Matt Damon was not there, sadly.
Oh.
But he was in the movie, and he was fantastic.
Yeah, he was. Great book, too.
But, we like to have a lot of fun at work, too. There's a picture here from our holiday party last year where several of us dressed up, and that's me with my bosses dressed up to have fun. So we certainly work hard and face challenges together, like I mentioned, and it's great to be able to have fun with our coworkers as well. It's a fun place to work.
Absolutely. Awesome. So more questions. What are some common qualities you saw when working with people around the globe? Do they have similar personalities and qualities, or a range of them?
That's a really interesting question. So I think the people that I've worked with around the world, Everyone has different personalities, just like we do here. The thing that's really cool about the folks that are supporting Space Station is that we're all working towards this common goal. And everyone's really excited about flying people in space and doing research in space to make the world a better place. And I think it's been really fun to be a part of that here, but also to meet these people from around the world that have totally different backgrounds and totally different experiences than I do, but we're all working together for this one common goal. And getting to know that you start out hearing voices on a telephone when you're talking with people across the world, and then to meet them in person and sometimes meet their families and get to know a little bit more about them, and they get to know a little more about us. It really shows how we can work together to do some really amazing things across the world.
That's a great point. Very great. And I just wish everybody could work like NASA works sometimes. It's just they all have that common goal, and it's just neat to see that. Question is, what kind of cargo do you work with?
So that's a good one. The cargo that my teams mainly work with, again, are research related. So different equipment that we need to do experiments on the space station and support the facilities that do that enable this different science and research. But there is lots of other cargo that goes to the space station. We have, of course, systems equipment that we send up to make sure that all of the systems that run the space station and keep the astronauts healthier and good working order. We have, of course, astronauts need food. They live on the space station, so we send up food, we send up clothing, all sorts of different supplies to keep the astronauts healthy. So if you think about anything you need at home, your toothbrush, or again, your clothes, or maybe for school, you need notebooks and you might need a computer. Those are all things that we have on the space station too for the astronauts to use. And so we send all of that cargo up in different spaceships regularly.
Cool. So we talked a little bit about how awesome your job is and the fun you have with it. I just want to encourage everybody that has, we have still a little bit more time for questions. So if you have a question, put it in the chat and we will make sure we answer it. At this time, we're going to talk a little bit about, Ansley actually is going to give you a little bit of a heads up on a kind of a homework assignment for you guys. So yeah, you're going to walk away with a homework assignment. If you have not done
it's really fun. It's a fun homework assignment.
Say, don't get off now, you guys. Stick around because it is probably one of the coolest things I've learned to do working at NASA, working at Kennedy Space Center. I had no idea that the space station can go right over my house. And so I want you to, if you don't mind, share a little bit about how that happens. And there is a slide that goes with that.
Yeah, so this picture is a picture of what the International Space Station looks like basically right now. This picture was taken on the last shuttle, or the end of the shuttle program, but it basically looks the same. It's the size of a football field. It's really, really big. And the internal volume where the astronauts live is about the size of a 5-bedroom house. And it travels around the globe once every 90 minutes, traveling at 17,500 miles an hour. So it goes really fast. And you can actually see it when it flies over your hometown. So we have a really cool website, spotthestation.nasa.gov, and that's fed with trajectory data that comes straight from mission control from the topo console where I used to work. So we can see the space station at dawn or at dusk. It doesn't have lights outside. Rather, when we see it fly over, we're seeing the sunlight reflecting off of the space station. And if you go to this website, you can put in your hometown or your friend's hometown, and you'll get information that looks similar to what's at the bottom of the screen here. That'll show you the date and time that the space station will pass over your house, how long it will be visible. The max height is basically if you look straight horizontally towards the horizon and go up that number of degrees, that's how high it will be. And then the appears and disappears is the important part. So in this particular example on July 16th, this is from Houston, 8:57, we went outside, looked to the southwest. So the appears is where it's going to come over the horizon, and then disappears, it's going towards the northeast. And I actually took this picture back in June when it flew over my house. So and that's just a picture from my phone. It's the third brightest object in the night sky when it's flying over your house. and it doesn't flash, it doesn't have lights, and it travels in a straight line really quickly. Like I said, it's going pretty fast. And you can see it when it's flying over your hometown, again around dawn or dusk, when the sunlight is lighting it up while it's still dark here on the ground.
Yeah, it is really spectacular. If you haven't seen it, make sure you guys do it. So again, this is an assignment from Ansley Browns. She said you guys have to get outside and check out the space station when it goes over your home. It is pretty cool, and you can wave to the astronauts. They won't see you, but um, so. More questions. We're at the 5-minute mark, so we're about to be finished, but there's some really still good questions coming in. We have a little time. What type of trainings did you have before space travel or before your job?
So for the jobs that I've had, I'll talk about my training for mission control. I have not gone into space, but I have worked alongside the folks that do go into space. For my training in mission control, I was in training for about 2.5 years, learning all sorts of things. So we start out by learning our technical areas. In the case of topo, we learn about physics and math and how spacecraft fly around the Earth. And once we master those skills, then we learn how to work in mission control, which again gets back to teamwork. We learn how to work together, how to talk to each other in a succinct fashion and solve problems in highly tense environments when we have a lot going on at the same time. And then we practice that. And we have simulations. So we pretend that there's a space station flying, and we pretend that there's problems, and we work together to solve them so that when we go into mission control, we're prepared to handle those situations. For the astronauts that fly on the space station, their training starts anywhere from 1 to 2 years before they fly, learning all about the systems on the space station. They spend time learning how to work the payload facilities that I help manage, so that when they get up there, they're able to do science experiments that researchers send up.
All right, and then I think we have time for one more question. Someone was asking, is your job more traveling or in the office?
So on
Typically.
a regular basis, I work in my office, in my home office right now. I travel personally probably 1 or 2 times a year, kind of depending on what meetings are scheduled. When I was in mission control, I traveled a little bit more. But there's lots of different jobs at NASA in many different areas. So we do have some jobs where people travel a lot more often. We actually have some flight controllers that work in mission control who are specially trained to go work in other mission control centers around the world and represent NASA at those mission control centers. So we have some people, for example, who go and spend 3 to 4 months at a time living in Moscow, working at the Russian Mission Control Center there, helping coordinate our space station activities.
Okay, so there's about 2 minutes left, but you guys, I want to say shout out to the people that are watching because they were excellent questions.
Yeah.
And Ansley, you did an amazing job answering them. What a knowledgeable person. It's just so neat to see someone that, especially a woman in a STEM career like this. And so we're very happy that we had you here today. So I want to just go to the second to final slide, your mission, one more time. We'll just review. We also put in here that there is a site, the Sally Ride Earth Cam, that we would encourage you to do some actual citizen science with that. So that's going to be put in the chat box for you guys to link to later. And then, of course, your call to action, your homework assignment. You guys better go see the spot the station sometime in the next month. I'm assuming it's going to go over your home. And so go to that website to put in your information. I even get updates on my phone that just says, oh, go outside now. And so I take my daughter out. We're looking for the space station and we're waving to the astronauts. So make sure you guys do that. And then if you end up doing something like get a cool picture like Ansley did, share your work. Put it on social media. We would love for you guys to do a hashtag NextGenSTEM. And then, of course, tune in next week. We have a great one coming up, another NASA STEM Stars. So we'll put up that slide. And that is going to be with Michael Logan. And he is part of the Unmanned Aircraft Systems. And that will be July 29th at 1 p.m. Eastern. So we are so, again, thankful you were able to tune in. Thank you, Ansley. Thank you, the team that's behind the scenes doing this. And we're looking forward to next week's STEM Stars. And bye for now.
Bye, thanks.